Many of the GitHub examples you saw used a very special language called Markdown to write content. And when you explore the Microsoft Learning repositories, the Microsoft Docs repositories, and other Microsoft repositories, you're going to see more and more Markdown used as a language to document projects, to create websites, and do other interesting things. And that's because Markdown makes it really easy for you to stylize content, to mark up content and say that this should be bold, this should be emphasized, this should be a hyperlink, this should be a list, without having to spend all the time you normally spend with a text editor trying to get the formatting just right. Your actual output Word documents, PDF files, PowerPoint decks should be the result of your build process, not the initial input into. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at Markdown and language and how you can use it to document projects on GitHub and how Microsoft Learning uses it to create labs hosted on GitHub. So first what we're going to do is we're going to look at Markdown as a language. Or markup syntax is more accurate here. We'll look at GitHub Pages, a feature available in GitHub that allows you to host websites straight from a GitHub repository. And then we'll look at how both Markdown and GitHub Pages are used specifically by Microsoft Learning. So I have an empty folder desktop here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder because it's easier to show Markdown if you're using Visual Studio Code. So I'll just create a folder called Markdown. I'll open this folder and open it with Visual Studio Code. Then in this folder, I'll just create a file called test.md, and I have a Markdown file. Now, this button right here allows me to open a preview of the result of my Markdown text. So Markdown allows you to do some interesting things. You can create a header. So you can create a header 1, a header 2, a header 3. And you see the headers are getting smaller and smaller, just like HTML. Header 4, and then finally a header 5. I can also create other things. So I'll just call this my title. I can create a paragraph text. This is some really interesting text. And 2 asterisks. And Markdown means to bold something. But what about that? 1 asterisk means to make it italic. I can create a link to, let's say, Azure. And the way we do that is square brackets for the text in the link, curly brackets where we want to go. So http portal.azure.com. I can also do some other interesting things here. What if I just want people to see the link? I can say I can create a link to Microsoft at http microsoft.com. I can even include things like images. Like I have the URL to the Microsoft logo used on Microsoft's homepage. So I'll just say Microsoft logo, my alt text, paste that in, and then I have a link to an image. I can do other interesting things. This is a list of text. This is the second item in the list. I can add a space or not, up to me. I can make the list numbered. So I'll say this is a numbered list. This is the second item in the list. This is the third item in the list. And this is great because we don't have to worry about how to number it. All we're doing is telling Markdown that this should be numbered. And Markdown, whatever parser, will figure out the correct numbering and order. We can either do other things, like we can have a quote. This is a quote from a very important person. We can even have code. Message equals hello world. Or maybe we have code inline. Using the Azure CLI, you should invoke the following command to determine the latest version of the CLI, az-v, and we can have code in line with syntax highlighted and everything you're used to in code. So Markdown is a very rich language that allows us to do a lot of interesting things. I'm gonna copy this because I want to use this a little bit later because I have a nice little repository. I'm gonna close Visual Studio Code and close my Explorer. And this repository is just a README file for a very important project. you'll see that if I edit it, it's just Markdown. We have a header 1 and a paragraph of text. I'm gonna paste in all the crazy stuff that we just did. If I click preview changes, I'm able to see everything that's brought in. There's one interesting thing you'll notice, that for the image itself, looks like to be a new line. So go back, preview changes, see the Microsoft logo is coming up correctly. Commit my changes, and now my Markdown's been updated. So Markdown, you've probably seen it used on websites like Reddit, you've seen it used on GitHub, you've seen it used in forums, a lot of other places. It's a really quick way to type up text. And one of the beautiful things about Markdown is you can convert Markdown to a lot of different things. So we use Visual Studio Code, the preview window converted Markdown to HTML and just showed the web page. Well, GitHub has a feature called GitHub Pages that does the same thing. And if you go to settings for your repository or project, you'll see down here that I've enabled GitHub Pages. You can just enable it yourself. It's not enabled by default. And it creates a website, if we refresh it, that has the content from our repository. Now we can go back, take our readme.md file, delete everything, commit the change, refresh. It's going to take a second because it's actually building out the content. So it can take anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. But eventually what's going to happen is our web page is going to refresh with the new content. Now we could go back in and say, but we are here to save the day, exclamation point, hit commit changes, and we've made another change to our project. Now, one of the great things about GitHub Pages is it allows you to just create a web page for any projects you have without doing a lot of extra effort. And one of the things you can do is you can actually go in and add themes. Now, by default, it uses a theme called Minima, but you can create a config file called _config.yml or YAML. And you get these things like title equals project documentation. Commit that file. And just like earlier, it takes anywhere from a minute to maybe 30 seconds to refresh. So we can go in and we can wait for it to change. If we go into settings right here, we could choose a theme from GitHub Pages. Lots of little themes available to us. I'm going to select the Leap Day theme. And you're going to notice one interesting thing that happens. It actually adds theme to your config.yaml. We refresh, we see the project documentation change has taken effect, but a theme change hasn't quite taken effect quite yet. Now, you can go in and use one of the built-in themes if you want, but if you want to get really advanced, you can use very sophisticated themes that are created by other people. You can create your own themes, and you can do some really interesting things there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and look at this project called Docs Jekyll theme. It's in the Azure Immersion organization, and it's a theme to make your website look like the Azure documentation. So you see we have a theme right here. We're going to go to our config.yaml, edit this file, and paste in our new theme. Now instead of regular theme, we're going to have to use remote_theme. And the reason we knew that is because we can go to other projects and see is use remote_theme. So I'll just paste it here. Remote_theme, Azure Immersion Organization, Docs Jekyll theme. Commit my change. And then after a minute or so, this is going to be updated. Now we use this somewhere really interesting. On GitHub, for the 205.32, 205.33, 205.35, and other Azure courses, we keep our lab instructions and demos hosted on GitHub. So you can actually go in and look at the markdown files for the lab instructions if you want. If you don't want to edit it, you can go in and click the raw file and see the raw markdown. Or you can just view the markdown preview in GitHub. But one of the cool things is, if you remember, we can host a GitHub Pages website. So if we go in and click this link, this is a GitHub Pages website using the markdown content that we just had there. We use a theme called Bootstrap, or a CSS framework called Bootstrap. We use some JavaScript to highlight different things, allow you to jump around. We have a little footer that takes you back to GitHub. Lots of crazy things that are all part of this Docs Jekyll theme. And if you refresh here, you'll see that we've implemented the same theme here. This project fails, company may be doomed. We have a block quote. We even did some advanced stuff like adding a note and an icon whenever you have a block quote. We have our GitHub URL down here, link up here, a link to a homepage. So we can do a lot of crazy things with Markdown and GitHub pages that allows us to host entire websites with all our Markdown files based off of our GitHub repositories.